From the days of UFC 1 all the way to present day, submissions have been an absolute staple in mixed martial arts. Today, we're showing off the rare, the game-changing, and the most jaw-dropping submissions in UFC history. Number 10. Chan Sung-jung vs. Leonard Garcia 2. The Korean zombie, Chan Sung-jung, has had some of the most spectacular fights in UFC history. Notably, his incredible match versus Yair Rodriguez that nearly went the distance with a back-and-forth brawl that ended like something out of a video game. Now, enter Garcia. These two fighters had a great bout back in 2010, and that only fanned the flames for their rematch at UFC Fight Night 24. This time, Chan Sung-jung got the submission win versus Leonard Garcia with a twister. If you've never heard of a twister before, you're not alone. Jung rocked Garcia with a right hand and then followed up with a flying knee. With just 30 seconds left on the clock, Jung gave Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu something to cheer for. The Korean zombie put on a clinic showing off one of the rarer submissions in MMA and showcasing the breadth of tools fighters have in the arsenal. Number 9. Jon Jones vs. Lyoto Machida. Back when Jones was still carving a name for himself, well before he entered GOAT contention, he took on the Dragon, Lyoto Machida, at UFC 140. This was only Jones's second title defense, and many analysts predicted Machida's unorthodox style would give Jones trouble. And they were right. Machida took full control of the fight. Everything Jones tried failed. Then, slowly, Jones began figuring things out. With almost no time left, Jones landed a left shot that sent Machida to the ground, and as he got up, Jones got him in a guillotine choke. What followed is one of the most shocking submissions in UFC history, with the Dragon refusing to tap and ending up totally unconscious as Jones was forced to release the submission as Lyoto fell to the canvas. Wild. Number 8. Frank Muir vs. Antonio Nogueira 2. UFC 140 was a submission fan's dream, with two of the greatest submissions in the history of the organization in the same night. The former heavyweight champion Frank Muir fought in the octagon for 16 years and holds the records for the most finishes and most submissions in UFC heavyweight history. Minotauro Nogueira was also a huge name in the sport, being one of only 3 fighters to hold belts in both Pride and the UFC, alongside legends Mauricio Shogun Rua and Mark Coleman. Frank Muir already got a huge upset win over Big Nog in their first fight with a knockout. When their rematch went to the ground, everyone expected Nogueira to win since he was considered one of the best BJJ practitioners at the time, period. But Muir shocked fans again when he got Minotauro in a Kimura. Big Nog refused to tap, so Frank Muir actually broke his arm in front of a live pay-per-view audience to prove his ground game was legit. Number 7. Matt Hughes vs. Ricardo Almeida. Matt Hughes was known for controlling his opponents with his insane strength, lifting them into the air for a signature slam. But the NCAA wrestling champ had a few more tricks up his sleeve at UFC 117. Before we knew it, the fight was over as Hughes swept to Ricardo's side and Ricardo went totally out cold. He never saw it coming, and fans had no clue what they just saw. They witnessed another incredibly rare and well-executed submission, the Dave Schultz front headlock, where the carotid artery gets shut off with the opponent's head trapped by their own arm. A devastating finish from this UFC Hall of Famer. Number 6. Dustin Poirier vs. Max Holloway. These two fighters have gone on to become two essential names in the featherweight division. It's hard to believe considering this was Holloway's first bout in the UFC. Starting off with a loss is never a good sign, but Holloway bounced back to go on a 13-fight win streak and grab the featherweight belt. But Poirier is Holloway's kryptonite, losing both this fight and the rematch. Poirier pulled off a classic triangle armbar. Nothing special, right? We see those all the time, but what makes it special was his ability to secure the submission from the mount. It was definitely a showstopper, and Dustin won submission of the night, and his place in UFC history for one of the best submissions the sport has ever seen. Number 5. Hoist Gracie vs. Gerardgardeaux. Taking a look back at early UFC stars, you can see the prominence of submissions. Forrest Griffin, Don Frye, Randy Couture, Mark Coleman, Frank Shamrock, and of course, Hoist Gracie. Hoist Gracie won the first ever UFC tournament and showcased the dominance of the Gracie family, who refined and popularized Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the global scale, thanks to wins like this one versus Gerardgardeaux. The smaller Gracie won versus the larger Gardeaux with a classic rear naked choke to shock the world and propel the UFC to the household name it's become. Number 4. Daniel Cormier versus Dan Henderson. Despite never coming up with the W against his rival Jon Jones, Daniel Cormier overcame insurmountable odds to become the champ of two of the most difficult divisions in the UFC, both light heavyweight and heavyweight. TJ Dillashaw stole the Performance of the Night award from Cormier at UFC 173, but this one was undeniably one for the history books. Dan Henderson was a revered striker with 16 of his 32 wins coming by way of knockout. Although he only had 2 submission wins, Henderson was an Olympic wrestler and NCAA Division I champ who used his wrestling background to stuff takedowns and stay on his feet to continue battering his opponents. Henderson's insane defense led him to a 6-year streak without being submitted, and Cormier broke that streak with a rear naked choke in round 3. Number 3. Ronda Rousey versus Cat Zingano. Ronda Rousey took the UFC by storm, becoming one of the biggest stars both inside and outside the UFC, with multiple movie appearances after she hung up her gloves. She boasts a whopping 27 wins at international judo competitions, with a professional MMA record of 12-2, and she was the first female UFC Hall of Fame inductee. Zingano was hailed as the woman to take Rousey down, but Rousey landed an early takedown and then secured a modified armbar to get the win in just 14 seconds, making it one of the fastest submissions the UFC has ever seen. Number 2. Demetrious Johnson versus Ray Borg. Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson has one of the most legendary records in MMA at 30-4 with 1 draw. The bantamweight and featherweight fighter has been in the fight game since 2007 and has scored 12 submission wins, with his win over Ray Borg being his most exciting. Even though Johnson was the heavy favorite, he had a dominating performance followed by one of the rarest and most difficult submissions possible. Johnson went for a takedown but transitioned to an armbar in mid-air, with the pair landing into the perfect position for the Mighty Mouse submission. Number 1. Anderson Silva versus Kyle Sonnen. Anderson the Spider Silva is still in the contention for GOAT status, but he faced his toughest opponent yet in Kyle Sonnen. The American gangster reshaped UFC history with his unique persona that's been emulated and perfected by later stars like Conor McGregor and Jorge Masvidal. Fans were treated to a one-of-a-kind spectacle at UFC 148. Kyle not only gave Silva the hardest fight of his career, he straight up dominated the entire fight. All 4 rounds were clearly going to Kyle, and everyone was sure he was going to win. With just 30 seconds left on the clock, Silva proved it only takes a second to completely reshape history. From his back, Silva wrapped up a triangle choke. Sonnen fought to escape, but he couldn't get out, and tapped with just seconds left on the clock. That concludes our list of the top 10 submission wins that have shaped UFC history. Did your favorite submission make it onto the list? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked the video, make that like button tap out and subscribe for more videos for all your favorite sports.